Welcome to this week's Read the Bible Together session. And we have a double session this week because with Vacation Bible School last week, we did not post a video of our Spark Story Bible story. So we are going to catch up. So, our first story is Jesus Blesses the Children. It comes from Matthew chapter 19, verses 13 through 15, and Mark chapter 10, verses 13 through 16. And of course, we are reading from the Spark Story Bible. So, Jesus Blesses the Children. Jesus traveled all over the land, telling people about the good news of God's love. And one day, while Jesus was talking to a large crowd, well, there always seemed to be a large crowd in these days, the children had to stand on their tiptoes or sit on their parents' shoulders just to see Jesus. People were everywhere on the grassy hill, laughing and smiling and waiting for Jesus to tell them more about God. God loves you and you and you, said Jesus. He wants you to love other people too. And you can see Jesus there with the crowd of people. And there's all ages there, right? And one mom said, I want my children to hear what Jesus is saying. Other parents wanted their children to hear Jesus too. So they moved closer and put their children down on the grass. One small boy tugged on the corner of Jesus' robe, and Jesus turned around. Ah, Jesus said, smiling, and he bent down to hold the hands of the children standing nearby. But the disciples scolded the parents. What do you think you are doing? Jesus is too important and too busy to talk to these children. Move your children back. When Jesus heard the disciples say these words, he stood up and turned back to the grown-ups. What do you mean? Jesus said to the disciples. These children are as important to me as you are. And you can see the little boy over here tugging on Jesus's robe and the disciples telling the parents to get their children away. But we know Jesus didn't like that response. So Jesus says, I want to bend down and look into their eyes and tell them about God's love too. Never stop anyone from coming to see me, especially children. Let the children come sit on my knee. Children like these are part of God's big family too. And Jesus knelt down and looked at each child in the eye. Come sit with me, Jesus said, and I will tell you about the love of God, my Father. And Jesus sat on the grass with all the children and told all the girls and boys about God and God's family. Then Jesus put his hands on every girl's head and every boy's head and blessed them, saying, remember, God and I love you just the way you are. Then Jesus stood up and said to all the grown-ups, remember my words. Whoever does not love God like a child won't be part of God's family. There you go. You can see Jesus talking with all the children and blessing them. So think about how you might have felt if you were part of that crowd with Jesus that day, whether you are a grown-up or a child or a youth. Think about that. And then think about how Jesus blesses you each day and how you can bless the world with God's love as well, since Jesus says this is part of what we need to do. And so that is our first story for today. And our second one is the parable of the mustard seed. And it comes from Matthew chapter 4, verses 30 through 32. And let me get to that page. Again, from our Spark Story Bible, the parable of the mustard seed. Jesus said one day to a crowd of listeners. He tapped his chin. How can I describe the family of God to you? Ah, God's family is like a mustard seed. But mustard seeds are tiny, the crowd exclaimed. And Jesus scooped some round black seeds from the ground and rolled them in his palm. When they grow, the mustard seeds turn into the largest strongest plants around. Even birds put nests in their branches. And the crowd started to nod. They were getting it. It starts small, but the tiny seed grows into something great. He stepped back to show a full grown mustard bush as tall as two people. God's family may have started out small, but each time someone shows or tells others about the love of God, it grows and grows. And there you can see the mustard tree. So think about this too. How can you explain God's family to other people? How it grows? And tell someone, share your ideas. And this probably relates to our last story about how are we sharing God's love with others as Jesus said to do. Thank you.